you're thinking about getting an MFA because you want to be a published author, I'm going to tell you a few things that might save you tens of thousands of dollars. Hi, my name is Cassidy. I am a writer and academic, a PhD in MFA in creative writing, and today I'm going to talk to you guys, should I get an MFA in 2026? An MFA can completely transform your writing, or it can completely destroy your love for it. And after finishing both an MFA and a PhD in creative writing, I think there's some things that you guys should know. So here's what I wish someone told me. Little background before we start. I got my MFA from Sarah Lawrence College in 2021, and I just finished my PhD in creative writing at Florida State University last year in spring of 2025. Some of my information about MFA may be outdated. I don't know. I finished my MFA in 2021, but I wanted to be real with you guys, and I wanted to share the reality of what it's like to truly go to graduate school for creative writing, so you can make an informed decision if this is something for you. What is an MFA? An MFA is a graduate level degree where students can hone their writing craft, either in fiction, poetry, nonfiction, and this is mainly through peer review workshops. So we kind of call this a studio/workshop program. Typically, an MFA will be built around you building your writing craft. My MFA was that kind of studio and craft-based program where it was about really workshopping your work, getting your writing to be the best that it can be, having your peers and having mentorship to where you can have your whatever writing that you're working on get to the next level, get to the best that it can be, and having just a community of fellowship and a community of writers to hone your craft. So that's what an MFA is. It's writing focused, there's mentorship, and also a good MFA program will have some sort of push for career development. When I also say it's a studio/workshop program, there are some MFA programs that aren't just solely studio based. You're not going to just do workshops and working on your craft. For example, at R1 institutions, you'll find an MFA to be a blend of a master's in English and that kind of studio MFA. So for example, while I was in my PhD in creative writing, I took a lot of courses with MFA students at Florida State. And so they had to have their own writing requirements for workshops, for their craft and things like that. But part of getting their degree, they also had to take literature classes. They had to take literary studies. They had to teach. And so that was more of a kind of the focus at R1 institutions are those research skills as well for being an academic. And so schools like FSU, their MFA, yes, you get some of that studio workshop environment, but for the most part, a lot of the program is like an MA in English where you're taking literature classes and there is an expectation for you to teach courses. My MFA at Sarah Lawrence, it was studio workshop environment. I took a craft class and I took workshop. Those are the only two classes that I would take per semester because the time is really dedicated to writing. A lot of people consider an MFA to be 1 or 2 or depending on the MFA, 3 years where you just get to work on writing your book and nothing else. But depending on the program, some may ask more of you to where you have less time to write your book. My program in particular, it was spent just time to hone your craft and really write your book. So here's some reasons I'm glad that I did my MFA. So for me, oh my gosh, I adored my MFA. I loved it so much. So primarily I did most of my MFA online. It was during COVID, but the first 6 months I was in New York, I was in person, and it was the absolute best experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. When we shifted to online, that kind of changed how I enjoyed my program since it was fully online. But those first 6 months were just incredible. I loved being in an environment, a community of writers all the time. And we would have things like coffee hour, writing hour, where we would just get together, have coffee. A lot of the professors would just kind of hang around and you can talk to them. You read each other's work. And I think during those coffee hours too, some people would present some of their writing, and so this was like kind of midday and people would just, you know, share what they had been working on. I really loved the mentorship. My professors, they pushed my prose. This one particular professor that I have, I would not be the writer that I am today without that woman. She pushed my prose out of my comfort zone. She could tell that I was confining myself in my writing, kind of writing safe, and she kind of pushed me out of that. A part of her workshop, what she wanted us to do, something that she does, she said, write on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, and say, I give myself permission. And that class, it gave me permission to write outside my comfort zone, to write outside what I thought writing should be, what I thought writing standards should be, what I thought craft should be. And she just gave me permission, right? I'm like, she didn't give me permission, but she encouraged me to give myself permission to just write freely. And when I tell you that elevated my prose, I just know that without my MFA, that would not have happened, of her just coaching me and mentoring me and pushing me past my comfort zones as a writer that you really get in an MFA, that mentorship, that level of intimacy between mentor and mentee in your writing continually. You can do some workshops, like I did a workshop with Hurston Wrights. Their fellowship was a series of workshops, and that was a brief time. I think it was about a week of workshops, and I got helpful feedback, but that was only a week. You know, I was with that professor for 4 months where it was just me and her. And the classroom, of course, but we would have one-on-ones every week where she just personally sewed into me and my writing. And that is a true benefit of an MFA that I'm like, sure, maybe you can get it somewhere else, but not in this type of way. I don't think the same environment, because the environment of an MFA is really focused on honing your craft, and I think that is hard to get elsewhere. So another thing that I really loved about my MFA were the networking opportunities. Oh my gosh, we had so many events with incredible authors. We have events where authors would come speak and give craft talks, and we would get to meet them, we would get to talk with them and learn from them. Not only that, my MFA in particular would have visiting professors that were pretty awesome in the industry. For example, one of the visiting professors during my time was Toshi Onyibuchi, and he writes speculative fiction, Black speculative fiction. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I like. That's what I like to do. I had heard of his books. I had read his books. And so I got to have him as a professor teaching me. And at the end of the class, he would, at the end of the semester, he was like, if you guys have a full manuscript you want me to look at the end of the semester throughout the summer, give it to me. Now, I never had anything finished to send to him, but the fact that that was an opportunity was pretty incredible, and I learned so much from him. I think right now the visiting professor at Sarah Lawrence is Fonda Lee, who wrote Jade City. Fonda Lee is an incredible writer, and so just to have those networking opportunities, have access to industry professionals is incredible. Also in the networking, at the end of my MFA, and I think other MFAs like Iowa too, they give you the opportunity to match you with agents in the industry. So I think Iowa does this too. Don't quote me on this, I gotta ask my friend, but don't quote me on this, but I believe that they match you with agents at the end of the program. And similarly, Sarah Lawrence did the same for our MFA. Based on the things they were looking for, Sarah Lawrence had some agents that they were in connection with that we got to talk to, right? And so for me personally, I didn't have anything to send them by the end of my MFA. So by the time I finished my MFA, I didn't have a book finished, but I did get to meet with those agents. I got to see what they liked. I got to They gave me notes on my query. I got to practice querying those agents. Like, I think part of the program was like we had to create a query package, and those agents would give us feedback, right? And so for some of the students, they had a book ready for those agents to actually send them. For me, it wasn't that. So what I got was the notes on my query package. And so that was really helpful. But they also said, once you finish your book, send it to me, right? Those networking opportunities, I really think really only come from an MFA. A good MFA program is going to have those networking opportunities. Something else that I really, really loved about my MFA, it helped build my confidence as a writer and also gave me some thick skin. Part of that may be a reason not to go get an MFA, but I really got some thick skin in my MFA, but also it built my confidence, right? There are some negative moments about an MFA where, you know, someone may completely tear down your writing and you may disagree with it, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We are at these programs to get critiqued, right? And some are more harsh than others, so it helps you build a thicker skin, but it also helped me build my confidence as a writer, because sometimes I would hear some of this feedback and I would be like, no, I don't agree with that. I like what I wrote and I'm proud of what I wrote, and I'm not going to change that. I'm confident on what I wrote, right? And so I think sometimes with writing, when you're sharing your writing with the world, a lot, especially in workshop and MFAs, is that during workshop, a lot of your classmates will give feedback based on how they would write something. And so it helps you learn not only how to receive feedback, but it helps you get to know what feedback is useful and what isn't useful. So sometimes I would have a workshop and I would feel pumped going home, right? I would get the best critiques, like not best critiques in the, oh, Cassidy, you did so good, but, oh, I didn't think of doing that, of, oh, I didn't even notice that was in my writing, right? And so they would give me some ideas of like, oh, maybe this character could do this because right now it reads as this and it's not really working, right? And so there are some workshops that I would come out with very useful critiques that it would make me excited to continue on. And to me, that is a good workshop class. When whatever feedback you get, whether good or bad, you're excited to make those changes and be in your manuscript. And so when I say thicker skin, there are some workshops where you come home and you're like, well, I should just throw this book away, right? And so in that time of being in that creative environment, I've learned to have confidence in myself as a writer and some thicker skin. I absolutely grew as an artist, and I can honestly contribute that to my MFA. Here's why an MFA might not be for you. This first thing isn't just common to an MFA program. This is for graduate school as a whole. Graduate school as a whole can be very soul-sucking at times. A lot of times it can drain you spiritually, mentally. It can pull some really negative things out of you that, if you don't have a good support system behind you, can make it really difficult. I will say that in an MFA, in a PhD, in grad school in general, there is an aura of just competitiveness, of people trying to be the best. That can come across in kind of very toxic ways that can feel soul-sucking at times. A lot of times, I wouldn't even say this was not a lot of times. For majority, my MFA was amazing, but there were some moments in some workshops where every single workshop, I would just want to quit writing. I would hate writing. I would hate what I was doing. I no longer loved writing. I hated every moment and just wanted to get through it because of the environment. When I say environment, there's always going to be some people who drag down a positive environment. And for me personally, I think a professor sets a tone for a workshop, and a good professor, regardless of if there are very kind of toxic or maybe even sabotagey students in the class, a good professor will maintain the integrity of a workshop. However, if you don't have that kind of professor, workshop can be really hard for those who have a really competitive edge and environment. There were many times in workshop where it would feel like feedback would just be to tear down other writers. There would be some writers who just never had anything positive to say about anyone's writing, right? It was just to tear down their writing, and it wasn't helpful feedback, right? And you're gonna get that. You're gonna get that any type of writing environment. You're gonna get that in publishing. You're gonna get that after you publish a book from your readership, right? And so I feel like I just want to mentally prepare you guys that there are people who go to grad school, who go to writing programs, MFAs and PhD creative writing, who really just tear you down and that's it, just to make themselves feel better. And I just want to warn you of that. That may be something that really might take you off guard. It took me off guard that not everyone there is there to help you be a better writer. So another reason an MFA might not be for you, more and more MFAs are being defunded in a way that they are not giving fully compensated for your degree. A lot of these programs, while amazing programs, you'll have to take out loans, you'll have to get in debt. Personally, for me at Sarah Lawrence, I got a very small scholarship, did not cover much of anything at all. Tuition was very, very high, so I had to go into debt for most of that degree. For my PhD, I didn't have to pay for anything. There are less and less each year MFAs that are offering full scholarships. And as you know, as that happens, those programs get more competitive to get into. And so I want to say, if you are looking for those positive environments, some of those schools just may not have the funding for you, and you may have to go into debt for that. And so that is something that you have to consider. I truly believe it was worth it, and I believe that there will be a payoff because my program was so helpful to me. You might be the person that's not worth getting into debt for, but that's just something to consider and a reason you might not want to get an MFA. And for example, Florida State has a fully funded MFA program, but on the other side of that is a TA-ship. So you will have to teach classes. And again, for that program, you'll have to take literature classes, you have to take other classes. And so it is a benefit that that MFA is paid for, but because you have to teach, you have less time for your actual writing. And so for my MFA, I thought it was really worth going into debt for, because I got to do nothing but write, dedicated time to writing, exactly what it was made for, and it was wonderful. Another reason why an MFA might not be for you, many graduates stop writing. Many graduates of MFAs never go on to publish a book, quit writing altogether, end up just going to do a regular job. And I don't want to say that to, make you anxious or make you nervous. They go to work in finance, they go to work in whatever fields that they were in before they got an MFA, and never pick up their book again, never pick up writing again. I've seen it, and it makes me really sad. I'm really grateful that I am still trying to pursue writing, even so many years pursuing writing. I'm still trying and going ahead, and I just know that a lot of people I graduated don't write anymore. And that is a reality, that you may go into debt getting an MFA and never write again. Job market. The MFA, your job market realities. And so I want to be so clear with you. Many MFAs, once they graduate, they're not going to get a book deal upon graduation. It will still be many years usually before you end up getting a book deal. You will have to work, right? Once you finish your MFA, you got to go get a job. And sometimes that can hinder the process even more of writing. So there's a reality that you may have to go get a job in something else. Even with that, let's say you get a good book deal, you may still have to continue working after that. So the job market realities of being a full-time writer, especially for debut, you may still have to work your other jobs. That's a reality too. too. Maybe you want to move into the publishing industry after getting your MFA. The job market just in general is hard. Maybe after your MFA, and MFA is a terminal degree, so you can work in a college setting. You can go teach workshops in a college setting and be a creative writing professor. But again, the job market is so slim for teaching. It's slim for publishing. It's slim for teaching. The job market in every industry, I'm sure, is bad, but it is really hard to find a job in creative writing right now. And let me tell you this, you know what job's not hard in creative writing to find? Training AI to take us out the job. I see those jobs every day. I'm like, okay, what jobs for creative writing do we have? Training AI to write books. I'm not doing that. What are you talking about? One thing I want to go back is the soul-sucking environment at times. One thing I forgot to mention was, yeah, some of the students and your fellow classmates might give you that soul-sucking environment. Some of the professors too. I've had professors who have told me my writing is That's fine. If my writing's not great, that's fine. Tell me. But teach me, show me how to fix it, or give me notes and feedback so that I can fix it, right? Those professors, I don't mind. I'm like, if they're gonna be blunt to my face, like, this is not good, that's fine. So how do I fix it? That's fine for me. I don't need a professor to praise me all the time and say my writing's good. That's not the point of getting MFA. That's not a point of workshop. I had a just wonderful professor who was so real, and I love this man. Like, he was on my committee for my PhD, and every time we would workshop, nobody, very little would get like a, okay, this is good. Most didn't, right? And I didn't until the end of the semester when I met with him like one-on-one. Anything I turned in class, it was just like, he was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. This is not it. This is not it. Rewrite it. Do it again, right? And so he could be really harsh, but he was so helpful and pushed my craft so much. So he could be so harsh, but he pushed my craft so much, and I was like, I love that about him. I'm not talking about those kind of professors. I'm talking about the professors that are like, this is and I'm not gonna say anything to help you. Right? And it was just that, right? I've had those type of professors where it's like, this isn't good, but I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to make it better. It's like, why are you there then? Why are you a professor if you're not gonna help me hone my craft? Why are you here? You're just telling me it's bad, but not helping me hone my craft. So I did want to say that could be having the potential to have those type of professors too is a possibility. So you should get an MFA if you love writing, if you love the craft of writing, if you are wanting to build your craft as a writer, you want that one-on-one mentorship like I was talking about. You want those professors that will have that intimate time with you in your writing to develop your writing, that one-on-one closeness. Get an MFA if you want that intensive craft development, if you thrive in a workshop space or in a classroom setting, if that's something you love getting an MFA. If you want that literary community network, I think that you should get an MFA. The reason why you should not get an MFA, I don't know what to do after college. That's bold of me to say because I didn't know what to do after college. I knew that I wanted to pursue writing, and I knew that an MFA gave you time to write. So I was like, okay, I don't know what else to do. I'll do this. Don't let that be the reason. If you don't know what to do after college, don't just get an MFA, because again, those people end up getting that degree, doing nothing with it, and never writing again, and wasting that money, wasting that funding. Don't do that if that's the only reason. Don't get an MFA if you expect immediate publishing success. Again, this may take years after your MFA before you get a book out, before you see success in your writing. It may take years. So if you are thinking, oh, I'm gonna get published those 2 years, 3 years, 1 year after my MFA, that may not happen. Not to say that it can't, because it has happened for some people, but don't expect immediate success after finishing your MFA. Don't get an MFA if you are not ready to read constantly. I loved that about my MFA. So much of being a good writer is being a good reader, and you are reading all the time in an MFA. constantly in an MFA. You're reading craft books, and you are also reading other people's books, other literary work, other speculative work, other nonfiction work, just other published work. You are constantly reading as a writer, right? And when you read the stuff that's in Barnes & Noble, when you read it as a writer instead of a reader, it completely transforms the way you write. And it's so amazing. So if you're not willing to just be reading constantly, an MFA might not be for you. Another reason why you might not want an MFA is if it's financially unrealistic. For example, my MFA was in New York, and you are already getting into debt paying for tuition. You've got to live in New York. That's a crazy thing, right? I'm like, I'm already in debt just for the tuition, and then I've got to find a way to live in New York. I'm from the South. That living in New York money, I don't have no living in New York money. And so if it can be financially unrealistic for you, you may not want to get an MFA. Don't get an MFA if you're thinking that the MFA alone is going to make you a good writer. You do not need an MFA to be a good writer. We have so many resources today, especially with the rise of the internet and access to things like Substack, things like Skillshare, things like AuthorTube. There are things that are available to you to develop your craft as a writer without an MFA program. And so if you're hoping the degree itself just makes you a good writer, that's not the case. There are so many other things that you can do to be a better writer. If you really do want the network, you want the community, you want the classroom setting, you want the mentorship, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And I will say, I thought it was worth every penny. This video is a lot longer than I expected, but if you guys have any questions at all about anything, I'd be so happy to answer them in the comments. I will make another video and talking about, should I get a PhD in English? Should I get a PhD in creative writing? If you're interested in that, let me know. I hope this video was helpful to you. I want you to just weigh your options. If you like this video, give me a big thumbs up, please. If you are interested in more academic and writing content, subscribe to my channel. I'm currently writing a book. I'm building a little writing vlog, so y'all can join me in that journey of being a published author. If y'all got questions, let me know, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.